This is an interview with Jesse Duncan. The interview was done on April 17, 1953. This is original tape number 49A, Side 1, Part 1.
This is another in the series of recordings being made by the Wisconsin State Historical Society of interesting Wisconsin people and events of historical importance to the state. We are visiting today, April 17, 1953, with Miss Jesse Duncan, a charming elderly lady who was born 93 years ago on the Duncan farm where she still lives. The place is in the neighborhood of Hickory Hill Farm in Buffalo Township in southern Marquette County, made famous by John Muir, world-renowned naturalist, apostle of conservation of our natural resources, and father of our national park system. It was in this community that Muir spent many of his boyhood and early manhood years. In another recording, we may tell of our visit to two of the spots made dear to Muir by numerous varieties of trees, shrubs, flowers, and other evidences of nature's bounty. But today, our visit is with Miss Duncan, seated in her wheelchair in her modest, attractive, and comfortable farm home down the road a piece from Hickory Hill. Visiting with her are Frank Elliot of the research staff of the State Historical Society, Clifford Butcher, widely known feature writer of the Milwaukee Journal, and the speaker, Andrew Hopkins, for many years agricultural editor of the University of Wisconsin. Although stricken down in childhood by infantile paralysis and later by a serious fall, Miss Duncan has continued cheerful and fully aware and quite in tune with life about her. We are happy indeed to introduce you to this gentle farm woman who throughout her life has either known or known intimately about John Muir as he wandered and wondered about nature and its many mysteries and miracles.
The Duncans, Miss Duncan, I wish you would tell us something about your early days here. As I understand it, your family settled on this very piece of land on this farm.
Yes, on this farm.
Can you tell me when that was? Do you happen to have it in mind?
They came here in the year 50.
In the year?
50.
50. Oh, yes.
Just speak just a little bit louder.
Hold her a minute. Well, the Duncans and the Muirs settled here when they came to Wisconsin.
Yes.
Did you stop any place? Do you know if they stopped any place on the way?
Why, the Muirs, I think my folks landed about 3 miles and a half from here in a house. They came from Milwaukee.
They drove over?
They drove over with a yoke of oxen.
With a yoke of oxen?
Yes.
How long did it take them to come?
Well, I think there were, I couldn't just say.
From Milwaukee, I mean. It'll be several days, of course.
Yes, several days.
Perhaps in the weeks.
No, I don't think they were that long, hardly. I've heard my mother say that she got so tired riding that she walked most of the way.
Well, now do you know where it was that they stopped?
Yes, it was at a corner down here about 3 miles and a half. There's a house there and a schoolhouse across the road from it.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Stroud lives there now.
Oh, a Stroud, one of the Strouds lives there.
Yeah.
Can I speak?
Sure.
Browning School.
Brown School.
Browning School.
Oh, the Browning School is where you were. Yes, I see. Well, then they had to build a house, of course.
Yes.
You were the first, your family was the first occupants of this land.
Yes, we are.
And they had to hew out the farm from the clearing.
It was all woods and wild land.
And you've heard your mother and father tell you about those early days here.
Oh, yes.
Well, do you have pretty hard picking at first?
Yes, pretty hard. They had to go about a mile for their drinking water till they got a well dug.
Is that so?
To Springs, that's about a mile from us here
Yes.
in a marsh.
How, was there quite a settlement of Scots came in here?
No, not here. Not now.
Well, the Muirs were Scotch,
yeah,
and
the
you people were
Muir
Scotch.
was Scotch.
And you were?
Yes.
Well, there are no others in the area.
Why, there was a family of
Oh, the Reeds, Mommy?
Yes,
Oh,
the Reeds.
and
Well, they were Scotch.
yes, the Reeds were
forgot
Scotch.
some
Well,
Reeds and Maitlands and
oh, the Maitlands were in here
The
too?
Maitlands was in here.
I see.
Carnses,
Carnegie, yes.
Valentine.
I hadn't thought of that.
Well, then you have lived on this spot all of your years.
Yes.
And you are now 94, are you?
I will be my next birthday.
When's your birthday?
In December, the 28th day.
I see.
So I'm just, you may say, 93, of course, for my birthday.
Well, that's fine. Now, did you, you knew Mr. Muir, John Muir.
Yes,
You knew him quite well.
yes, quite well.
Did he and you go to school together here?
No, my brothers went. They were so
With-
much
with
older.
John Muir.
Mm.
How did your brothers regard him?
Oh, they guess they thought he was always a very agreeable person
Fine.
to talk to, and they liked him.
Well, did you, when he'd come back here from the west, wouldn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And you'd see him at those times?
Yes. He came here, and the last time that he was here, my father and mother sat up till 2 o'clock in the morning talking. Stayed
with
all
him?
night with us, and they sat up for 2 o'clock talking with him.
Are there any of the Muirs left in this area?
No, I don't believe there is.
Well, are the members of his family, are there any members of his family anywhere? His brothers or sisters?
David Muir was one brother, and he had a dry goods store in Portage for many years. But he left here and went to California, out where John was.
Oh, yes.
And Dan Muir, he was a doctor. That was another brother. But he didn't live around in these parts. I know very little about him, any more than that's what he was.
Well, do you know the John Muir's own family, that is his own children? Did you know them?
No, I didn't know them because they've never been here. They're all in California.
I had a letter, you'd be interested to know, I had a letter from, I think, the younger of his 2 daughters. He had 2 daughters, Wanda and Helen.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And Helen wrote me from her home in Seattle the other day. She has changed her name. I think she married a man by the name of Ferguson.
Oh,
And her name then was Helen Ferguson Muir.
oh, yeah.
But she chose to have the Muir name continued. She has a son. She has changed her name to Helen Ferguson Muir,
Oh, yes.
so that they will continue that name.
That name.
I was very much interested in the letter which I received from her. Stop me too long.
He went down to Madison, and went to school. And he invented several things there.
Well, you don't recall anything that happened right here? Any incidents? course, we all know about the well and the digging of the well and how he almost lost his life.
Yes.
We are quite familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, please.
Well, John was in poor health when he was a boy, and his father thought that he would give him, well, he wouldn't allow him anything but grain foods, yeah.
Wheat and
Yes.
rye.
So Mother was there one day, and she says, John, she says, if you had a piece of good beefsteak, she says, it's better for you than that. So Mr. Muir says, why? He says, you're fond of beef? Not so very, she says, but I know that it would be awful good for John. So Father spoke to Muir about it. She says, why don't you take John to the doctor? Oh, says she, I don't think he needs it. Well, says she, if he was my boy, I would take him. So he did. So Muir was willing to admit, says he was perfectly right, he says. It's beefsteak, and the very best, he says, that John needs. And after that, he went to town, Portage, twice and 3 times a week to get fresh meat. There was no way of keeping it fresh, in the summer here. And he'd go 2 and 3 times a week to Portage to get meat. And he admitted, you see, I never thought that meat would do my family as much good as he says they always would have had it.
You know, Miss Duncan, you're showing a good Scotch trait in believing in meat.
Yeah.
And livestock. I can just imagine that you came from a strain of people that liked Aberdeen Angus cattle or Hereford cattle or Shorthorn cattle, some of those.
Yes.
Because your mother apparently had that same idea of the importance of meat in the diet.
Yes, yes.
Read novels and some of the Scotch books that your father had brought here from Scotland.
Yes, and his father didn't like the idea of him wasting time. So he used to go down in the cellar, and he would sit there at night and read these books and things his father would lend him.
The Duncans then must have brought over quite a few books with them.
Yes,
in the library.
Yes, they could.
I suppose a lot of the Scotch work.
Yes, yes.
Bobby Burns,
Yes, oh yes.
Scott,
Yeah.
and you loaned, your family loaned those books to John Muir.
Yes, yes.
And then he'd take them home and read them. Well, how do you account for the fact that Mr. Muir's father was rather indifferent to learning? Didn't encourage John too much. He didn't say goodbye to John when he went down to the university, did he?
No, I think not.
Well, how do you account for that?
Well, I don't know. He thought that you got to go to work.
Oh, he was a hard taskmaster.
Yes.
And
yes,
he wanted to work.
Yes.
Well, how had he gotten his learning,
Oh,
his training?
Well, I don't know.
He got some of it from books, didn't he?
I suppose he did. I don't know whether he was a great reader or not. And he took up his time with religious works more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
He preached, I think.
Yes, he did.
Or if it wasn't preaching, it was something along that line that he would have around at the different schoolhouses.
Yes.
So all those that would go. And one Sunday morning, he took the whole family down to a lake about a mile from us here and baptized them.
Yes. Go right ahead.
I know that the whole family he took along, because the family had always to do as he said.
He was the boss, was he?
He was the boss.
See that the boys did the work.
Well, yes, it was.
Was he father a hand for that?
Yes, it was the Bible he was studying, I think, principally.
And the boys were out doing the work while he was reading, studying.
Yes.
Well, the father went away, didn't he, and went up to Canada.
Yes.
And did he continue to live up in Canada until his death or not?
Well, he died with his youngest daughter. I don't know how long he lived with her before, and she let John know, and Dave was there. Dave Muir was there too, out there in California at the time, and she let them know when he was bedfast, and they came and seen him before he died. And and he was buried there.
He was buried in California or where?
No, he wasn't in California. I don't know just where she lived, but his wife and one daughter is buried in Portage.
Oh, yes.
She and the other two girls were gone. They married and left this part of the country.
Did you know of the Galloways?
Yes.
Sarah was one of the Muir girls.
Yes, she was
and
older.
she married Galloway.
Yes.
Did Mr. Galloway and Sarah buy the Fountain Lake Farm from David Muir?
No, I don't think
Well,
so.
didn't they operate the Fountain Lake Farm?
No, I don't think so. Not that I know of.
Well, you remember John Muir tried to buy the lake over at the Fountain Lake Farm from his brother-in-law. Now, wouldn't that have been Mr. Galloway?
Well, it must. He had another sister married to John Reed.
Well, this was Sarah.
Yes. Well, Margaret was married to John Reed.
Oh, yes.
And whether
Was he
Reed...
a farmer?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And it might be him, but Galloway lived... I don't know exactly where his farm was, but I think it was rather southwest of us here.
Oh, yes.
And the Reed farm was up north of it.
Now, I wonder if I could ask you about Mrs. Wolfe. You knew Mrs. Wolfe, didn't you? Linnea Marsh Wolfe. She came here and wrote that book.
Yes.
Now, she spent a year or two here, didn't she? Summer at least?
No, she spent between Madison and here, she spent just a winter.
Oh, just the winter.
Just the winter, wasn't it, Annie?
Yes, she came here, let's see, about October when she came here first. And then she went back and forth to Portage and Madison and the Hickory Hill Farm. She went back and forth until the 1st of March, wasn't it, that she left here?
Yes, I think so.
Well, I've just been very much interested here. I got a hold of a picture of John Muir that Mrs. Wolfe sent to you, and I was very much interested in the little note that she wrote on the back.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember? This is what she said.
Mm-hmm.
May you have a happy, peaceful Christmas season and years to come. Here's a picture of John Muir coming home to the household where he knew kindness in the long ago. His book is getting along. Hope to have it done in the spring or early summer. I take it that he was referring to his visit to the Duncan home.
Yeah.
Very beautiful sentiment, I thought.
Yes.
Can you recall from conversations with your father or mother if the Muirs moved over from Fountain Lake to Hickory Hill before the Duncans started here?
No, they were here, and they were still over in Hickory Hill, or
Fountain Lake.
Yes, And they moved to here after our folks was here quite a while.
Oh, yes. You people were here ahead of their being at Hickory Hill.
Then he came over here and he bought quite a he must have bought about four different farms over here. That is land, 80 acres. Because he sold them afterwards. That's one of them on that joins this one over there.
Oh, yes.
And he gave two of his daughters each an 80. But there was no buildings on them when they were married.
Your first recollection of Hickory Hill, can you tell me how you recall it looked? Has it changed much?
Oh, yes, it's improved, of course.
It was pretty heavily wooded, was it?
Yes, oh, yes.
Do you know if it was, what was it, lots of hickory?
Well...
Got a name, Hickory Hill.
Yes, well, there was lots of hickories up around the hill, that hill. They've been cut down, you see.
And then the oaks, the oaks were there, too, at the same time.
Oh, yes, the oaks.
You have a lot of bur oaks up there, I
Yes.
know. Well, your place was wooded even in your time.
Oh, yes.
And
Well, yes, pretty much. It was, you didn't have it all cleared.
What impression you had of John Muir when you first saw him? Was he tall and straight and bright-eyed with dark hair and solemn-faced, or was he jovial nature? Can you remember anything about that?
Yes, he was very jovial nature. He was tall.
But he never was interested in farming or anything like that. It was
He
mostly
never liked the farming.
nature.
It was always books.
Nature and
inventing
birds,
something.
philosophy.
But he didn't like the farming so very well.
Well, did he take part in any of the social activities of the community?
Yes, but at that time, there wasn't so very much here of a social. That is, anything later on, why, they had spelling schools and singing schools and all that through the winter season, but he was gone by this time, of course.
Go to the same church?
Yes, they didn't go to these, what he preached in.
They were the United Presbyterians, weren't they?
Yes, United Presbyterian Church.
And they went to that.
Yes.
Where is that? Was that church located?
It's right up here yet, about 2 miles from us.
I suppose the church had been built when the Muirs moved in, hadn't it? Probably your
No.
folks and others had built
The church was built the haul the lumber the year after the Civil War closed.
66.
Yeah, they built the church then. And we had quite a congregation, but the old people is gone. They're lying in the cemetery there beside the church. And the younger ones, the other people is come in, and it's principally, our neighborhood is principally Catholics. There's a small Baptist church down here about 2 miles from us south. And then there's a Catholic church, I guess you would pass it. It's coming up here. Over here.
Yes, we did.
That's the Catholic church.
Well, can you remember the Muirs going past here afoot, any of them, to this church, UP Church, or were they gone after that church was built? Did they leave here, so they never went up here to church?
I don't remember them ever going, because as long as their father lived, they had to go to his. And I really
where
don't...
was his church?
Well, I
Wherever he happened to be.
Oh,
Wherever people would listen to it.
Yes.
Well, that was in some of the houses. He never preached here, did he, in this house?
No, he never did. But he got the schoolhouses.
Different schoolhouses.
Yeah.
And they went with him.
And they had to go with him.
That is, even John, at his age, would be forced to...
John left when he was 21. Left the whole...
John and his father didn't always see
No,
quite eye to eye.
No, it didn't.
Miss Duncan, quite aside from what we've been talking, you're here in the old community. What do you think about the results of John Muir's work in conservation and in the establishment of the national park system? Has that been brought to your attention over the years?
Yes, I often wondered at that, how he really enjoyed the life he put in that work.
Well, of course, he got his inspiration over here at Fountain Lake.
Yes, I suppose. Mm-hmm.
He loved that country, and that was the inspiration for his later work.
Yes. Correcting them. I remember hearing him tell, or I heard that he did tell it. I didn't hear him tell it, but I heard that he did tell it, that Dave, his brother Dave, had done something that he was going to be corrected. And his father sent him out for a switch. So he went and brought home cut down quite a little tree and hauled it home. Pulled it home, and there it was. To see him corrected, or John didn't want to see Dave corrected, rather. Nice family, the Muir family, they all were.
Oh, there was something great in that blood.
Yes, there was, yeah.
Had to be.
Well, didn't John aggravate his father and mother, from what you could remember, about he's always studying and picking up books and reading and all that? Wasn't he a great aggravation to his father when it
Yes, his
came
father,
to
but not his mother. His mother tried.
This is the continuation of an interview with Jesse Duncan. The interview was recorded on April 17, 1953. This is original tape number 49A, Side 1, Part 2.
Always studying and picking up books and reading and all that. Wasn't he a great aggravation to his father when it
Yes, his
came
father,
to
but not
anything
his
like
mother.
that?
His mother tried to encourage him and all these things.
Well, she always shielded him, didn't she,
Yes,
from
yes.
Mr. Muir?
Oh, yes.
What kind of a woman was Mrs. Muir, John's mother?
She was a very nice, ladylike woman. She had been brought up in the old country. She was quite, she had a refined appearance. She was a refined woman.
Did any of their relatives from Scotland ever come over to visit them while they were living over here on Hickory Hill?
No, never heard tell of them ever coming. Well,
10 or 12?
oh, yeah, yes, about that, I guess, when he left here.
Well, you didn't have much play in your life in those early days there, did you, here?
No, not very much.
Pretty matter-of-fact living.
Yeah, that's right.
How far was this spring that you got your water, or the family got its water?
Well, we got it from, you passed a brick house on a corner, didn't you?
Yes.
Well, it's a marsh. Down from there, there's springs in it. And that's where we got it.
About 1 mile.
Can you recall how you first met Muir? I suppose it is neighbors, neighboring
Yes,
back and
neighbors,
forth.
yes, just neighbor and go back and forth. That's the way it is. We met him.
And you can recall playing with him, any?
No. Oh, would you speak to Annie? Yeah.
No. Just pardon me a minute.
Well, then they are now.
And being Scotch, the two women, Mrs. Duncan and Mrs. Muir, were very good friends. Their sentiments were much the same. And of course, John Muir went to school with Mother's brothers. Made quite a difference, you see.
It seems different than it used to be. Years and years ago, it was, why, in the neighborhood, you know, if there was sickness in the neighborhood, why, everybody went and helped all they could. And now you could be buried and die and be buried now. And maybe they wouldn't know anything about it. It's a different world entirely.
Well, it's a pretty good old world, though, isn't it? If we can control some of the bad forces at work.
There's so much of it, too.
How would you like to go up in an airplane?
Oh, I wouldn't go at all.
Do you like the radio?
Oh, yes, I like the radio well now.
You don't have television?
No.
Would you be interested in it?
No, I don't think I would.
You wouldn't care to see the Milwaukee Braves in a game?
He reads about it.
I see in the newspapers pictures of it and so on.
Where was your shopping center back in those early days? Was Portage?
Portage.
How far is it? That's quite a ways.
We're 14 miles.
Back in horse and buggy days, that was quite a distance.
Yes, it was. That's right. But they've got cement road clear to Portage. Well, about 2 miles from us, you get it and go clear into Portage.
Did you know Zona Gale?
I'm not personally acquainted. I've read about her.
Well, she lived in Portage, of course.
Yes, she did.
And I wondered if you'd known her there.
No, I never met her.
Well, didn't Grandmother Duncan used to walk to Portage when you were out there getting your
She
treatment?
walked home once.
How far do you figure it is to Madison from here, either one?
Well, what was it to say?
Isn't it, our neighbor lady drives down quite often. I think it's, what did she say it was? About 45, I think.
And John Muir walked it several times, all the way to Hickory Hill.
It's hard for us to realize that, isn't it?
Really?
And walked to Portage. There used to be quite a piece. We had his picture then. He walked to Portage with one Christmas Day, the coldest Christmas that he's known for years and years. And another boy was walking out to Portage. He worked in a hardware store in Portage, and he was walking out there. And he said he never would forget the advice that John gave him on the road out there. And so he has helped me lots of times too.
What was the advice?
Eh?
What was the advice? Do you remember?
No, he didn't mention it. He just mentioned that in the paper, that they walking towards together, and the advice that John Muir gave him. He said John Muir was just starting out in life, that is, being away. He was going to Madison.
It's been a very fine visit, Miss Duncan. I'm sure that all of us have enjoyed it very greatly. And I hope we may be back in a year from now.
Yes, I think you stopped
Well, I've stopped twice.
a year ago.
Yeah, well, it's, I've been laid up.
Later than this, but I was sick in bed, and I think it's Frank, the man here.